Hello again, this is Johnny I Builds with another Python video. Let's get started. I'm going to do a recap of what we've gone over so far. So just to recap, before I do the recap, I am going through a Python book called Automate the Boring Stuff with Python by Sweigart. There's a link below. It's a Creative Commons license, so no problem using it. Author was nice enough to make it available for use. He also did his own videos in case you want to learn straight from him like I do. So I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring up the idle shell, which I got by hitting start and then typing in idle. And I'm going to hit Windows and then the left key to put it on the left. And then I'm going to hit File, New to make a text editor. If I hit the Windows sign or Windows button and right, it'll put it on the right for me. One of my loyal viewers said that you can also use a IDE, which is an integrated development environment. So that's what the big boys use for coding. I'm not a big boy yet, and so I'm just going to use a plain old notepad here on the right. The difference between these two I didn't really go into. This right here is called the shell. It's always going to have the arrows on it, and it's there for you to play around with to do one expression at a time. So if you want to hit 2 plus 4, it's going to immediately tell you it's 6. Okay, this is more like a regular Microsoft Word file editor. If you hit 2 plus 4 and hit enter, it's just going to go to the next one. So this is more for big programs that you're actually going to save and then run. Most of what we're going to be doing right now is going to be on this side, just so we can see how basic stuff works within Python. So now we're going to get to the recap. I'm going to repeat a few things that I think are really important, as much for myself as for you, so that I can learn it. So, for example, the concept of an expression. So, in the hallowed halls of Python University, wherever it is, I imagine it's like Hogwarts, and they have deemed that 2 plus 2 is an example of an expression. So this is an expression. And when you have an expression, it's a value plus an operator. So 2 is a value. Operator means you're actually doing something with that value. And 4 is another value. So the right way to say it is 2 plus 4, that expression evaluates down to 6. Down meaning you've made it as simple as it possibly could be, if you could remember that from high school math class. So another expression that can evaluate down, 4 times 8, 32. Okay, fair enough. So the order of operations is normal, just like from your high school math. 2 plus 3 with a times symbol, and it's the star, not the X, times 6 is going to be 20. So they do the 6 times 3 first, or 3 times 6 first, and then add the 2 down to 20. And then parentheses, as you probably already know from high school math, overrides the multiplication. So let's try the same kind of thing. 2 plus 3 times 6 evaluates to 30. So this expression, 2 plus 3 with parentheses times 6, evaluates down to 30. So with that kind of nomenclature in mind, let's move on to the next item, which is data types. So again, in the Hogwarts of Python, where there's a bunch of smart people, they call this, and probably not just Python, but programming languages as a whole, this is a data type that is an integer, 42. If I keep hitting enter, it'll eventually go away, but that's a data type that's known as an integer. 42.0 is a float. Float just means that you've got some other value floating after the whole, or after the integer. So 42.7, that's a float. And then another data type is called a string. That's an example of a string. I hit enter and the two parentheses evaluated to one parenthesis. It doesn't matter if you hit one or two parentheses, as long as it's consistent. So if I hit this and then that, it'll give me an error because I used one parenthesis to open it and two to close it. As long as it's the same, it's fine. So this is an example of a string. Johnny I builds. It doesn't know what to do with that. But if I put the parentheses, it does know what to do with that. That's a string. It evaluated to itself. And then finally, a variable is the last data type we'll go through in this this recap. So a variable is just something that is set to equal something else. So Johnny I builds equals awesome. Does this work? No. I think it's because I've got three different variables and doesn't know what to do with them. So let's try something else. Johnny I builds altogether equals awesome. Didn't work. Johnny I builds equals 4. That looks like it works. Johnny I builds, yep, evaluates to 4. So I got an error because the system doesn't know what awesome means. What if I make it a string though? Johnny I builds equals string awesome. Hey, it looks like that worked. Okay, so this is an important fact, and the very first error I need to correct from a previous lesson. I erroneously said that something such as a word or phrase altogether, like Johnny I builds, is thought to be a number by Python, but that's not true. Johnny I builds is defaults to being thought of as a variable by Python. So in this instance, when I hit Johnny I builds equals 4, it said, okay, fine, this is a variable and 4. I know what that is, so Johnny I builds equals 4. Up here, when I put Johnny I builds equals awesome, it thought that, right, let's look at this one. Johnny I builds equals awesome. It thought that awesome was another variable, but it doesn't know what awesome is. Does that make sense? So let's set awesome. Let's go back to where we have nothing. Awesome equals 4. Johnny I builds equals awesome. So what's Johnny I builds going to evaluate to? Oh, the tension is hitting us. Yep, it's 4. So logically it went, oh yeah, Johnny I builds is awesome, and I already know that awesome is 4, so Johnny I builds is 4. Very good. So this is my assignment statement, just to talk with like our Python Hogwarts professors. Awesome is assigned to 4. Johnny I builds, this is another assignment statement. Johnny I builds equals awesome. So Johnny I builds is assigned to awesome. And just by logical progression, that means Johnny I builds is assigned to 4. All right. Last thing I'll go over is you can make strings repeat themselves. Alice. Let's do Johnny I builds times 3. What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to do 444 altogether? Well, it had a number, so since it had a number and I gave it another number to multiply, it took 4, since that's what Johnny I Builds is set to, and multiplied it by 3, making it 12. What if we have a string? Let me let's do the, I think the problem there was I started it with a string when I need to start it with the variable. Again, you have to do it a certain way. Syntax, Johnny I Builds equals the string Johnny I Builds. Good, so this variable is assigned to that string. Johnny I Builds, the variable, is assigned to Johnny I Builds the string. And now let's go Johnny I Builds times 3. What do you think is going to happen? Let's see. Johnny I Builds, Johnny I Builds, Johnny I Builds. Yes. All right. So that's the summary. You now know, and I now know everything I need to know to do a real life program. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. Appreciate you watching. Get ready, and I'll talk to you next time.